Welcome to the Artist Work Ethic Podcast. I'm Mike Pelak. I'm a screenwriter and filmmaker who's always looking to maximize my time and potential as I work to break in. In this podcast, I talk to artists of all kinds who have seen success in their fields about their process, habits, and work ethic. My guest today is the hilarious Greg Stone. Greg is a New York City-based stand-up comic who's appeared on NBC's America's Got Talent, TruTV's Friends of the People, and Access TV's Gotham Comedy Live. He's also a writer and has written for the Netflix show The Break with Michelle Wolf and has a new show called Under 1,000 that just began streaming on Topic. He's also the co-host of the Rad Dudecast. So Greg, you've obviously been busy. I've known you for, 20 years now, I would say, and I got to watch you go from open mic comedy nights to writing for Netflix, which is amazing. And, you were working at a hospital, you were waiting tables all along that time. How did you manage to stay productive and focused on comedy while dealing with all that other stuff in the hospital and in the restaurants?
Well, back then, the first 10 years of comedy isn't managing to do that. It's not doing it well. It's doing it wrong, doing all the wrong ways of it's finding your own kind of, systems and shit like that. Right. When I was working in the hospital, on Fridays, I wasn't a great writer. I would just write down things. So in the beginning of stand-up, when you first start as a comic, you write down, in my opinion, this was my thing. It's you come up with ideas that you think are funny, right? You come up with them. Things happen that are funny, and you go, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to talk about that. But as you become a better comic, you start saying, this is something I want to talk about, and I'm going to make it funny, if that makes sense, right? So back then, it was just like I was at work hoping funny things would happen so I could talk about them, or I'd make up wild lies. I'm not really sure. So I wasn't really back then. It was all just kind of about figuring out. Also, we're talking 20 fucking years ago now.
You were observing your world and molding it into the material that you needed.
Well, that's the thing, right? When I worked in the hospital, man, I met this, I tell this story sometimes, but I met this guy who was essentially he was a pedophile who hadn't ever done anything. He was in hospice, and he had this attraction to children and all that shit. And he had just essentially in his deathbed, he was he admitted to me that this was his family had kind of disowned him, but he had never done anything. He had just kind of come out and said, I need help. This is some weird shit that's going on. He admitted to me he never did anything. And now when I observed that in the hospital, but that wasn't a joke I could do as a 1-year comic. I had to just write that shit down and be like, when you know how to talk about this, that's when you do the bit. You know what I mean? Because it's a very hot topic, a very weird thing, and then about 10 years later, I worked it into a story, but I just shifted. I just kind of, working in the hospital gave me a lot of material, but stuff that I wasn't ready to talk about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, no. And you just kept grinding it out in the comedy clubs, right?
In the beginning, yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it wasn't even the comedy clubs. Anywhere you can get up, anything you can do for stand-up. It's you need to hit that 10,000 hours, So it was any bar. I used to go Whiskey Cafe, which was just right across the street from not Times Square, Medieval Times. I would do those. I would do these bringer shows where you bring people, and how many times I forced you guys to come see me be a horrible comedian
at Rascals.
You had to bring 10 friends, and then they let you go on, right? So that was the beginning process, and then you just kind of get used to it. And now I can write. When I first started writing, I couldn't sit for 20 minutes to write jokes. I would just go on stage, I would scream. I come up with ideas, I go on stage, I would scream. And then my friend Pete Isip, I don't even remember Pete, he was a workout guy. He was like, how much do you want to write? I was like, I want to write 5 days a week for an hour a day. And he was like, how much do you write? And I was like, I really don't. And he was like, okay, so take the middle of that, right? He's like, try to get yourself to sit down for 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week. Just sit. He was like, don't even write. Just open the computer and stare at it.
You've got to do something.
Right. Yeah. And I eventually kind of that turned into you start to build the tolerance to be able to sit and work. And now I write every day. I mean, I write every day for 2 or 3 hours every day. But there was another thing that goes with that, which is a big problem I had in the beginning, which was trying to force myself to work in ways that I don't work. So like I would see one of my comedian friends, this guy Anthony DeVito, he could sit at a computer and write for 5 hours, just jokes. I can't do that. So I have to write the way I write, which is I walk around the block, I take notes, and then I retweak, and then you do this. And it's like the big problem I think with a lot of writers have is trying to force themselves to do work the way other people work. And it's just not conducive of any good bits or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes read in some of the, online screenwriting boards and things, you occasionally hear someone bragging about, I spend 8 hours a day writing. I write, 20 hours across a weekend. And like you, that's just not me. I can
Right.
do a 20-minute, let me bang out a page type of thing, but I don't have the attention span to sit there in front of a computer for 4 or 5 hours and do it.
So, yeah, I always say like set your goals short. I only need to do 20 minutes today, and then do it and beat it. Let me hear some shit. You want to hear some shit? This is just brought up what my therapist said, which was horrible. I write, this was great. It was like hit me, but it was like totally about who I am. But when I would do stand up, I would always be like, fuck, like I write better on stage. I don't know what's going on. And I just hate myself. I have like really low self-esteem, just constantly beating myself up. And she said, every time you hear that person telling you that's not good enough, that's not funny enough, she's like, name him, right? So I named him Larry. Larry is in my head. Every time I hear someone go, you're not funny, you're not good, you shouldn't be here, I go, hey, Larry, I appreciate you saying this. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to help me, but it's not going to work. So I can't do that. What that does is it teaches your brain to start listening for that voice. Because usually he whispers, he just goes, you're not good, right? And then you go, you don't hear it, you just believe it, right? So when you start training yourself to hear that voice, you can talk to it and go, sorry, Larry, I don't want that right now. And she said to me, she goes, would you ever, the things you're saying to yourself right now, would you ever work for anyone who would treat you that way? And I was like, no, I'd quit. She was like, well, why the fuck do you think you can work for yourself and be that mean to yourself? That was part A, right? That was part A. That changed my life because I started doing this. Then she was like, well, how do you get work done? I was like, that's just makes me mad. I see my friends, they sit, they write. I can't really do it like that. I write on stage, doing stand-up. It's like, that's when my best shit comes to me. And then I have to like type it out later. And she was like, why do you think that is? And I was like, I don't fucking know. And she goes, well, when you're on stage, what's happening, right? I'm like, I don't know, I'm doing my jokes, I'm killing, I made a joke. I was like, I'm fucking destroying, And she goes, you're absolutely right. So when you're on stage and you're killing, you have a full crowd of people supporting you, being like, you're great, we love you, and everything you say is gold and it's working. When you're sitting at your desk writing, you're sitting there with one person, Larry, and that guy is extremely mean to you. And how could you work under those circumstances? Dude, it was like life-changing because now I've trained myself to like, they always say in script writing, I'm sure you've seen the billion of these, but it's like, first script, write shit. Just write all the garbage, get it out of the way. And 80% of the time I start writing shit, I always get really, really good stuff because I don't care. I don't care about being good. I don't care about it being funny. I'm just writing. So that's like that's like ways to deal with Larry, I guess.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it is just acknowledging its existence, his existence.
Right.
How did you make that transition from, working in the hospital and any other odd jobs you had into just full-time, you're doing stand-up, making stuff, you're writing? How did you bridge that gap?
Well, I was fired from the hospital. Yeah, I mean, essentially at the end of they knew I wanted to be a comedian, and they were like, one of the doctors was really cool. He was like, you want to do that, right? I was like, yeah. And he's like, we are trying to train you to be essentially go to school and be a doctor. And they were like, stop. We're going to let you go in February. They gave me like almost like 6 months to get my shit together. And they were like, we're going to fire you in February, take all this money, move to the city or whatever. And I was still not enough money. It was not a lot of money, but I didn't have like whatever, but I worked. And then I ended up getting a job at the Apple store. And I mean, the transition wasn't good. This is the thing. This is the fucking common mistake that comedians have. They're always like, I am successful if I am only making money from comedy. That's not success. Success is you're writing a joke, you're creating art that you believe in. That is success. Money is not a sign of success. Every comedian who essentially has a side job. Look at Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart's side job is acting. That's where he's making all of his money. Sure, you get your Bill Burrs and your whatever, but like they're making. It's a great example is Jim Gaffigan, right? His shows and shit. Like, yeah, he makes money from shows, but then he gets an insane amount of money from royalties from Sirius XM, and then he gets money from royalties from TV shows. And it's all these little things that bring you money. So then with the way I kind of interpret that is like, look, if you're a comedian and you're working a day job, stop acting like that means you're not successful. Successful is the art. Are you creating art? And you're fucking successful. The most famous, you ask any real comedian, the most famous comedians are not the best. You talk to comedians, they'll always be like, who's the best? I go, Jimmy Wrigley. He fucking 1989 is, like they always, you have their specific people who are,
yep,
who and like I'm a good example. I'm not like trying to toot my own horn, but I have like a small fan base of people who love me, which is insane, right? And it's like, to them, I'm their favorite. So what's success? Is success being Bill Burr, or is it being, no, success is fucking whatever. So when you're saying about transitioning, to me, it's like, be okay with, find a day job or find a way to make money that you're okay with. Right? I'm sorry. And I just wanted to finish that thought. I apologize. But like a lot of these TikTok people and shit, like, and podcast people, like so many comedians now just make a ton of money from podcasting. That's not stand up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like what you need to do is you need to work on your art, but then you need to work on a way to get money. And those are two separate things. And so get money in the most painless way possible and work on your craft. If you're working on your craft, you're successful, in my opinion. And I don't really care what anyone else says, because that's what I believe.
I agree. Looking at my own self, as I'm working to break into a screenwriting or filmmaking kind of world, I have a day job, yet I'm still trying to crank out scripts, made a handful of short films.
Right.
And I do get a fulfillment from that. Would I love to be doing that full time? Yeah, seems like a good idea. But, I still get to look back on these things and the achievements that I've had to this point and feel good about those. I don't feel bad about them just because I'm still working a day job.
Dude, and that's the thing, right? When you do these short films, right? It's like you finance them, right? You just get someone to give you money to make them. So then people go like, well, I want to make something for Warner Brothers. Like, well, what is Warner Brothers? All that is a person with more money, a bigger bank account, right? So like, what's the fucking difference? You're already doing it. You're writing, you're creating. I do believe in, you make good stuff, people will support it, and you just keep building these skills. Eventually you will what happened to me, which is crazy, is that like someone goes, how did you start making money? It's like, I think you just get older and eventually you've just done enough shit that eventually you're making money. Like, how do I make money? Like, I got a little bit of money that comes from my podcast. I make a little bit of money that comes from royalties from my album. I make some money from clubs. It's all different little pots.
Diverse income streams.
Right. Which is also great because then no one can take that from you. Like when all the clubs went out, I still had, because of COVID, I still had my podcast money coming in. I still had Sirius XM money coming in. So, it's diversified,
Yeah,
and I got this Dogecoin's really going to make me. You want to hear the craziest thing ever? Sure. I woke up in the morning. I woke up in the morning still high from the night before. And there was a letter that said, you bought $500 in Dogecoin. Thank me later. And I was like, I did like a memento and wrote myself a note that says I bought a bunch. So I got a bunch of stone. And to me, it was money. It's kind of silly, but it was money I got from selling a couple action figures. And I was like, this money is gone. I'm just going to ride this thing out and see what happens. This is what I call bit money. This is money. It's not Bitcoins. It's for me getting a bit that I can do on stage.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's a wild ride it's been so far.
All right. So you mentioned earlier that you write for a couple hours a day now. What would you say is your typical day of Greg wakes up and he knows that he's got bills to pay and he's got a show tonight, but he's got things to get done between now and then? How do you buckle down and stay focused on what you need to do that specific day?
I mean, it should be noted that all of COVID, when COVID happened, I went, I'm not giving a shit about comedy. I am getting my ADHD under control because I have raging attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So that first thing I did was I got myself back on Adderall, which I need, and I don't abuse it, and it helps me, whatever. And for me, I need what's it called? Structure, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't write in my house. So I wake up. Now I have the system where I go, Mondays is podcasting, Tuesdays is scripts, Wednesdays is stand-up, Thursday is video editing, and Friday is Freaky Friday, where I get to do whatever I want fun, stupid projects like make beats or paint or anything that's kind of weird.
It's like your cheat day.
Yeah, it's my cheat day where it's just kind of like there's no pressure on this stuff.
Yep.
Now, every day I kind of write a little bit of stand up, right? But there's no pressure to write stand up on those days, or there's no pressure to finish a script on the non-script day. I'll wake up. I'll usually go to a coffee shop. The way I work is I have a notes thing in my phone that any time I think of anything that's funny, I write that down. Funny, weird, crazy. I put it in the notes. I sit down at the coffee shop. I open my computer. I go through those notes and try to be like, okay, what is any of this? Write it down. I get my first batch of ideas on that. I can usually do that for about an hour or two before I lose my fucking mind. And then I get up and I go for a walk. And then I walk around with the bits for a while. I let them do whatever, you know. That's, you got to get this. I always call it that second brain, you know. If you're first braining it, it's hard because you're concentrating fully on it. But I usually get my best shit when I'm doing something else. So I'll go for a walk. I usually take about 100 showers a day, get in the shower. And then after those things come down, after I have that stuff going, then I write it down. Then I go back to the coffee shop and then I will write out those things and try to like cut out the words. So, you know, try to make it like tighten it up a little bit. But that still means nothing, right? Because I have such a bad memory that none of it matters, but I need that documented in the best way possible. Then at night I'll have shows. I'll write the words. I'll write bullet points of those jokes down. And then I go on stage, not memorized, and I just try them and they bomb. But that's what gets me to do it in the most natural way possible to talk to a person. Because I think the one thing I think that I like about myself and for stand-up is I try to talk in a way that is more conversational with a crowd. I'm not really a script guy. So I open up, I'll be like, who's this fucking cocksucker right here? And then I'll go, what's up with mosquitoes? Right. And then I'll work in my mosquito bit or whatever I'm working on at the time. And then I record those. And then the next day or the next stand-up day, I listen to those. Usually I'll listen to them on the way home.
Okay. You record your stand-up shows?
You record every single set audio wise. I record every single set. And then on the way home, I try to listen to them and then write down like how I did it. Because I'm always coming up with stuff on stage and then write down those lines so that they can transfer to the next show. Because I do a lot of my writing on stage and come up with the best stuff on stage, it's more about documenting it so that I don't forget it.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? I don't mean to like.
Yeah. And kind of self-feedback. Do you look for feedback from your co-host or whatever and say, take a look at this. What's your feedback on this?
I mean, for me and stand-up, I think in general, most stand-ups will like, if they watch it and they like it and someone feels comfortable, they're like, hey, dude, I got a tag for you. And they might throw you a line. But the only real feedback I get is like, I'll sit with DeVito, who's my friend, or like and I'll be like, hey, is this funny? And I'll give him I'll be like, bags, like, I don't know, like bags are clear and some shit. And he'll be like, oh, and then he'll be like, oh, what about this, this, and this? And I'm like, oh, that's fun. And then I'll do that. That's huge for me. And I'll do the same thing for him. We go one for one. He gives me a joke. I give him a joke. And then we help see the angles you might not see. But mostly for me, what I realize is when I'm saying this stuff to Anthony is for him to go, that doesn't make sense. It makes sense in your head, but when you say it, you get it. I don't get it. Yeah. So I'll be like, oh, I need to be more clear on what is the point I'm trying to make.
So you've been doing this quite a while now. No doubt you've faced plenty of rejection, as we all have, who are trying to, pursue any of these creative arts. What's the one thing that you tell yourself to keep yourself motivated day in and day out in the face of that rejection?
That's a weird thing, because when I remember when people first started telling me this, like, you're gonna get a lot of rejection. Yeah, but I don't take it as rejection. It's 99% of it is no. You're only just trying to get one in. What is, I don't know, like what is, for me, as a comedian, it's great. Like if I have a meeting that goes bad, that's usually a story that I can tell and I can make that funny. Not getting things. I'm going to be honest and tell you that, like, as far as comedians go, for as long as I've been doing it, I do not have as much success as most of the people. I don't know if this sounds arrogant, but most of the people who can do what I do comedically have a significant amount of more success. And I'm not trying to be arrogant, but like, I know I'm good at this. And I don't really have the like TV credits a lot of these people have. Mm-hmm. What I do have is fans, and I'm happy and successfully. I'm a happy person. I'm like actually a very happy person, which is, that. So the rejections to me is like, oh, what? You didn't, like, what even is a reject? Like for me, it's like, a script didn't go through. Sure. 99% of these don't, but that wasn't a problem because I enjoyed writing the script, and right now I'm working on a TV show thing that we're trying to pitch that if it doesn't go through, I'm going to self-fund it as a comic book. You know, like if I really believe it, I'll make it happen. Also, we had that show you said before, that topic, the one we were streaming.
Yep.
We pitched this show TruTV to TruTV. It's called Under 1,000. It was like a year. We did a pilot presentation, which was like, it's like half a pilot. They gave us money, didn't get picked up. 2 years later, some streaming service goes, we're looking for something like this. And I went, well, we did this one time. And they went, we love it. So it's like, even the rejections then, you don't know, it might be a win later. Most of this stuff, you know, if you're writing something, it's like, you don't know, maybe someone wants it later. It's all held off.
Right. So what I'm going to take out of that is even if something in the moment feels like a no or a closed door, it's figuring out what you can take out of that. If I put a script into a screenplay competition and it gets knocked out in the quarterfinal or whatever, what I would take out of that is that it was good enough to advance in the begin with.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's not even a rejection. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
I was just going to say it's just about reframing it in your own mind.
We live in a time where you can do absolutely anything you want, right? So you write a script, it gets knocked out. That's not a rejection. That is just you're making a left turn on a road, because now you can be like, well, I don't give a fuck what they think. I'm going to make it myself, or I'm going to send it to somebody or whatever. Or someone goes, we're looking for writers. Well, I've got this thing that proves I can write. You know what I mean? There's 50. See, the problem with everyone here is perspective. They look at this as a perspective. You lost. That's a rejection. No, the perspective, that was 5 wins. The five wins is you wrote it. You now have material you can submit. You can make it yourself. Oh, you didn't win a stupid contest? Well, fuck these contests. 90% of them are rigged. You're just trusting these people know what they're fucking talking about. No one in this industry knows what they're talking about. Artists know what they talk about. But guess what? Artists aren't the ones who are giving people fucking chances. You know what I mean? So it's like, being in this business, and one thing I know is that most of these people are bullshit. It's all bullshit. If you want to make something, you could fucking make it. So you do something. It's 50 wins. Those are 50 fucking wins to the one loss. Yeah. That is, it didn't advance. Sorry, I'm yelling at you because I'm pissed off.
You are yelling at me, and it is all bullshit. To just wrap this up, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're working on these days, or anything else you want to plug? If you want to talk about your streaming show that's going on right now.
Oh, well, yeah, we have this. It's only 1 episode. We're waiting to see if they're going to give us more. We don't really. It's not a big deal. It's also a fucking thing that we did so quick in the middle of COVID that we almost forgot about it, and then it came back. But I'm working on I have a podcast called the Rad Dudecast, which is something I'm the most proud of, because on that podcast, where it's just unadulterated me being as funny as I want. When you get these like no's from other people, I always had my podcast to go back to, where I got to be as creative as I wanted. Now I'm kind of transitioning into starting a new podcast where it's going to be more myself, because it was me and 2 other people. So I'm excited to do that. That's what I'm working on. I think we're going to call it Friday Night Greg. It's going to come out on Tuesdays. It's just going to be funny. It's going to try to just be as funny as can make it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening today. Please subscribe to the Artist Work Ethic podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, and please rate and review the show. Follow us on Instagram at The Artist's Work Ethic, and check out theartistsworkethic.com.